Boom! Hey guys, welcome back to Jason Unleashed. Yes, hi, I'm your host, Jason Carter. Thank you so much for watching. Today's show is so spectacular. We have Peppermint on the show, and I've been dying to talk to her for years. We loved her in season 9 of RuPaul's Drag Race, but like I said, she's more than just a drag race darling. She is a Broadway darling, and she's been doing so many amazing things, not only for the LGBTQ plus community, but for those marginalized groups of people. And she's going to be in the show in just a few. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the support. She's going to send a request in just a few. Yes, it's been so cool been able to catch up with you guys every day. So if you have any comments or questions you want to get in on the chat, leave them below. I'll try to get some. It's hard to go back and forth, but we do what we can. And yeah, we have someone really cool on the show. If you guys are liking the new do, I had to get it cut. It's been a minute. Anyways, let's bring in Peppermint. Peppermint. It's the dance, the connect. We're gonna call that the connection dance. How about that? Pep!
Hey, Jason.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Hi, hello, good to see you.
It's so good to see you. You look fabulous.
You as well. Oh my gosh, Peppermint, so much to talk to you about. First and foremost, how are you doing? How has quarantine been treating you?
It's been all right. I mean, on one hand, I'm going a little bit, out of my mind. But on the other hand, it's given me the time that I needed to sort of slow down and work on some new stuff.
New stuff. We're gonna get to that. I'm glad it's going well for you, Pep. I mean, what can we say about you other than that? You're like Bob, the drag queen, and I watched you and him talk about racism in the drag community, and that was such a nuanced, amazing conversation. And he said that you are a legend and you are history making, and he wasn't wrong. He's not wrong about that. For real. But let's take it back to the beginning. And I want you to do me a favor and tell the viewing audience and those who don't know what trans means, because I feel in 2020 people still don't understand. So can you please enlighten us?
Well, trans, it can mean a lot of different things. So I can understand how people can be confused or not quite sure, maybe uncertain, or maybe even a little bit uncomfortable. And trans really does relate to someone's gender. And when you hear somebody talk about trans anything, the next thing that basically what they're signaling is the next thing that they tell you, you need to make sure you listen to and that you follow what they're telling you. If they tell you a name that's something other, if they tell you any information about themselves or their gender other than what you would expect, or even if it is what you expect, then that's what you need to follow. Whether it's how they present themselves, whether they use male or female or he or she pronouns, whether they use a different name than you're expecting. That's basically what it is. That's a very extremely simple definition. But that's the first thing that people should know if they're not already educated. Of course, you can go out and kind of educate yourself, meet new people, but transgender people are basically people who, for many people all of their lives, some people at different points in their lives, feel as though the gender that they were assigned or the sex they were assigned at birth is not how they feel on the inside and is not necessarily how they want to live the rest of their lives. And many people go about that and navigate that different ways. Some people have surgery, some people change their name, some people, spend certain time doing one thing or another, dressing a certain way. Some people don't do any of those things, and some people do all of them. And so it really is about what I tell you about myself and then how much of that you're going to respect.
Got it. Thank you so much for shedding light on that, because I've had conversations with people, of course, being on Drag Race, and people who aren't really, they're allies, of course, but they're uncomfortable or don't know how to approach the situation. And I am not of the trans experience, but I have many friends who are. So thank you for enlightening us, because I still think that some people aren't too clear, aren't too sure, and knowledge is power. And the more we can have these conversations, the better. With that said, conversation, Peppermint, wow. Okay, so you're not new to this, you're true to this, right? You've been killing the game for a while. I mean, musically, we're gonna talk about you in drag, we're gonna talk about all that, but you've been performing your whole life. and have been someone who has been giving of that artistic, those artistic endeavors for well over 2 decades. Talk about that, because you have albums, you have singles. I mean, Peppermint, you are the full package.
Wow, I should come here every morning, shouldn't I? Uh, yeah, I started performing as a little kid, like a lot of people do, discovered the sort of acting bug or performing bug very, very young, singing and dancing for my family at all the holidays and in the living room. Of course, lip syncing to all the divas in my room, wearing my mother's clothing when I was quite a young baby. Um, and so that kind of just kept, getting, you just I guess that would be every once in a while, it just became more and more prevalent until here I am today. Um, and I look back on my life and I've done all types of things, worked with so many people. I did community theater as a child. Of course, I was involved in music and drama when I was in school. And then I moved to college and studied acting for college. And then, did several film and TV appearances. I won't call them roles, appearances, before doing Drag Race. And then, of course, once Drag Race hit, the platform everything just sped up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you had been someone who is, and well, was back then and is still now, but in that time in your life and your career was beloved in New York. I mean, I remember hearing about Peppermint before Peppermint was a thing on Drag Race. And it's so funny to say that, huh? Because like, of course the platform of Drag Race is huge. It's this global phenomenon, but people have been in it way before that. And it's sad that people don't do their homework and realize that, oh my gosh, so and so had a career long before they sashayed on into the workroom and onto the main stage. But coming onto Drag Race, that experience for you, because we saw it play out on TV, but in your own words, tell us about that journey, because you were openly out as someone of the trans experience, the first person actually, and then coming on to a show that's heavily scrutinized, the pressure, and what was that experience like?
Well, that's okay. First of all, I mean, yeah, I definitely did have an established career before Drag Race, and Drag Race definitely gave me something bigger. I think one of the things that's really interesting is there's kind of a double-edged sword with things like Drag Race, or even reality TV. They can introduce, I know more about cooking and sewing and things because of things like Top Chef and America's Next Top Model and Project Runway. And so those are the gifts that reality TV brings us. And they really do a great job of introducing, especially if it's a competition, every single year to a new cast of characters, people that we can fall in love with again. And Drag Race does that too. But on the other hand, one of the things that these reality shows do is they do a really good job at making us think we don't need to do any other work than whatever they tell us. Whatever we see on the TV, that's it, and nothing existed before or outside of that world. And of course, that's not true. And so many of the queens on Drag Race have, obviously our drag careers may have felt like they were born on Drag Race, but the humans were born years before that. And so we were doing things in our community and figuring ourselves out long before. And so I had a career that I enjoyed, that I was traveling the world and living my life, making music. I had music on videos on the Logo channel before Logo ever played Drag Race. And that was great. I was doing the same kind of things then that many of the Drag Race girls do or would like to do today, before Drag Race existed. So then once it came around, I realized, that this is probably something that I should try to get into, because it was becoming more and more popular. Around that same time, I've always been the same exact person, but I didn't always have access to the same things. That's pretty much my story. And that's a lot of trans people's stories. When I was, 20 years ago, when I first started my drag career, it wasn't as easy to live as a trans woman out in this country. Yeah, we still see today that there's a lot of things, even that the administration and the president are trying to do, make it illegal to be, there's a transgender military ban. Currently, there's a motion in the Supreme Court to make it legal to fire people for being transgender or even gay. There's so much going on in our country that makes it difficult for trans people. Imagine what it was like 20 years ago. And so that's where I was. It just wasn't as easy to find yourself and have other people support that. And so everything was much slower coming. But despite all that, I did come out as a trans woman. I've always been out, really. There was always something, but I wasn't able to really articulate, and I certainly hadn't started my medical transition. So I started my medical transition in 2012. And the first time I ever came out to the world, people that could meet me, but I couldn't see because it was on TV, was not actually Drag Race. It was The Daily Show in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I was a guest on a panel in The Daily Show, and then we had the opportunity to talk about our trans experience, and that's where I officially came out to the world. Of course, if you were my family member, if you were people that knew me, my roommates, people that worked with me in the club scene, then you already knew. And so bringing all that into Drag Race felt like a whole lot. And so I wanted to really focus on my skill, my outfit, my looks, my attempt at some looks, and my contribution to the art of drag. I thought that that was probably the best way for me to be judged, because I knew that there was a lot of people that still really don't understand what trans is or know people that are trans. And let alone that, there's a lot of people that don't understand the difference between trans and drag and how they can work well together. And so it really wasn't, I wasn't trying to go on there and like curse everyone out before I knew their name. I wasn't going to be like, I don't know who you are, but F you, I'm trans, you can go to hell. Like that doesn't get the job done. I needed to go in there and get number 2 on that show, aim for number 1, be the top ranking the highest ranking trans woman, highest placing trans woman on in Drag Race history. I needed to do that first so that I could go on to become the first trans woman to originate a principal role on Broadway. So that I could go on to become and do all these other things, but you have to do that first. So I get a lot of criticism on how I decided to tell my story and live my life on and off the show, and that's okay.
But and it's interesting that you say criticism, because one, yes, in your season, they say cracking the code, but everyone has their own code of crack when you go on to any competition, right, of how to win. But yes, you didn't come on being this, waving things around like as a banner, but you turned look after look. Lip sync assassin is who we know Peppermint to be. I mean, you created lip sync assassin on Drag Race. So the criticism, what kind of criticism would you have received from people, and what were they saying? Because you have gone on to be a staunch and vocal supporter and advocate and activist like no other. So what criticism would people have?
Well, I do want to say that I certainly was not the first lip sync assassin. Sometimes you have one every season. The first one that actually coined that phrase was Chad Michaels. So I can't necessarily take the crown from her, but I am a lip sync assassin, certainly the lip sync assassin of my season, if I say so myself. And so, yeah, I think I had a great performance. Obviously, I had a good performance on the show, and I have in earnest tried my best to use my platform responsibly in a way that other people can benefit from. And so some of the criticism that I received before going on the show, and even in light of the show, was, you don't belong on Drag Race because you're a trans woman, and trans people don't belong in drag. I've heard that. I've heard even from people within the LGBTQ, especially people who are trans, saying, you're not a good representation of trans people. You shouldn't be the one to speak about this publicly. It should be someone who looks more like what we think a pretty woman should look like, and you don't look like what we think it looks like. And so I heard that. I heard all kinds of stuff. And it basically comes down to what I hear from these people, and I haven't found a really good argument otherwise. Look, me being aware that I don't speak for the world, I speak for myself, and if my story resonates with other people, then I'm happy to help you do what I can to share my platform and allow those people their voices to speak, but at the same time, trying to enlighten people who haven't heard any of our stories and give them one taste of one person's story. And then try to allow that person to be open to hearing all of our stories. That's my goal. If that doesn't work for you or whoever's criticizing me, then the only thing I'm hearing to the people that are criticizing me is, I'm mad because I didn't get onto the place where you are. That's all I'm hearing.
Right. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. With that said, though, you exhibit such a superhuman amount of emotional and mental strength. How did you cultivate that? Because I mean, Peppermint, listening to interviews, and I mean, I've seen, I mean, I know you. I've seen you speak. I've seen so many. You've given so many great interviews about your experience as not only a woman of color, but just in this business, and you have so much strength. That's how I can articulate that. How and where and what well do you pull that from?
The simplest answer is probably my mom. But I definitely learned at a really, I mean, look, I'm a human. I have insecurities. I have fears. I have all the same feelings that everyone else has. But I did learn at a very early, something occurred to me at a very young age, at an early age. And from what I can tell, looking around me, an earlier age than other people around me, was sort of a self-confidence and a reliance upon myself. And that really started with, who am I? Like, compared to everyone else, this is different. Let me really understand all of this. And once I really understood who I am, I knew what my strengths were. I knew what sort of the limitations that my seeming limitations. I knew what things I wanted to develop about myself. I knew all of this. I had a whole checklist, diagnostic of who I am spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, socially. And so that's probably why I've always felt that way. And it's not that I don't have times where I feel uncertain or insecure. Of course I do. But for the most part, that's always at the core. And so I guess that's where that comes from.
Well, navigating this world of social media now, and I mean, you're superstardom and you're a celebrity of sorts. It's the truth. You and Bob talked about racism in the drag community. And like I said earlier, it was a very nuanced and very in-depth and very raw conversation. Drag Race in its inception and conceptually at its core, from what we know, is all about love and inclusivity, and it's this global phenomenon that is this banner of all these of acceptance. Why do you think it has some of the most toxic fans? It blows my mind to see the comments and the vitriol and the hate on social media and the things that queens seasons after seasons go through. When do you think that shifted? Where and why do you think that shifted?
I don't really know. I think the best way to say it, I know it's something that Bob and I even said in that conversation, is whatever percentage of the problems that happen in America, it's going to be reflected in the Drag Race fandom. And of course, I know that Drag Race is and has an international fan base. But I don't know who these people are, the individuals. Of course, many of these folks, people on the internet saying bad things, are anonymous, hiding. A lot of times we would probably be surprised to find out who they actually are. So all that being said, I think that these comments and these problems, this is this is part of that twofold thing with Drag Race, or with reality TV, but especially Drag Race, because on other reality TV programs, you really are just getting a sliver, because the product that they're putting out is the dress. Like, the person that makes the dress, they hang it, and then we look at the dress, and that's what they're critiquing. On Top Chef, they make the food, they stir it up, they show pictures of the food, the chef steps away, and they taste the food, they're critiquing the food. On Drag Race, we get over it, and here we are. And you're critiquing us. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't realize you're critiquing us, our creativity, our artistic nature, but also us as individuals. And of course, our egos, because we are artistic people, and everyone has an ego. Artists are not unique in that way. But I think that when you don't really know us. If you're watching Drag Race or any TV program, we feel like we know you. And that's, I guess, the key to a successful show, is showing you a well-rounded enough or big enough chunk of a human or people so that you think you know them because the feelings come through. The feelings come through, and you see people living authentically and being authentic. But just because you see someone being authentic doesn't mean you fully know them.
Right.
And so since you don't fully know someone, it gives you the ability to fill in the rest of the blanks about who that person is.
And sometimes those blanks are erroneous. And just want to say also that Drag Race has some of the most loving fans too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
It's
not unique to Drag Race.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you said, and I agree with 100% that it's a small sample of people, but their chatter is loud. You know,
Exactly.
it's like when someone tells you a positive comment, you're like, oh, thank you, but you tend to remember the negative ones more instead of,
Always.
you know,
Always.
it's crazy. It's crazy, but
I do want to say one thing. It reminds me of I don't remember the adage or who exactly said it, but it's so much easier to demonize and vilify a person when you don't really know who they are. If they're a stranger to you, it's so much easier for you to dehumanize them and call them this and put them down and criticize them because you're not connected to them. But the imbalance is someone's criticizing someone that they see. The person that they see is being open and honest in their public. So someone on the show is open and honest and exposing their insecurities and their vulnerability. You know, and I hate to use this, but the classic example of that is someone like Roxy Andrews, who most people have never met, like most humans in the world have not met her. She's met a lot of people, but not most of them. And so most people haven't had the opportunity to really get to know how wonderful and kind and loving of a person she is. You just see what comes through. That's fine. So then when she exposes that she was, you know, abandoned at the bus stop, because that's a classic tale that we've heard, a very sad story, and that bothered her and was made her emotional, then people get.
I think she's frozen for a minute there, you guys. Stand by. She's coming back in just a second. Oh, oh, Zay, you're there. You're back. Pep, you're back. We're
Okay.
good. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
Okay. So we see her and then we say, okay, Roxy, she must be a bitch. I don't like how she talked to that other queen who was my favorite queen. And I know that she got left at the bus stop. So I'm going to talk about her and make fun of her being left at the bus stop and tell her all these horrible things without having to really take any responsibility. But you're right. It's not just the Drag Race fans, and it's certainly not all of the Drag Race fans. It's a very, very small amount. But I do think that there's a certain boldness. Vixen shared a meme or a picture the other day that was really interesting, and I hope got people to think a little bit. Your queerness does not erase your privilege. In that case, it was your queerness doesn't really erase your white privilege. If we're talking about people who are white, and I know that white people are not the only people. The people who are all racists are not white. I know that, but we're talking specifically in this situation that problem of the queens of color receiving hate that's branded like racist hate against black and Latin and people of color. And so these people should understand that if you are queer, it doesn't absolve you of
Right.
all of the other things that happen in life. There's still sexism, there's still racism, there's still misogyny, and it's all within the queer community because the same problems exist in the queer community that exist in the rest of the country.
I would agree. And sometimes they're even more potent in the queer community. Sometimes they're weaponized a little bit more intensely than outside of the queer community. Someone below just said that you are a trans icon. And you are to many. The responsibility, do you feel, is there, I mean, you are someone who people look up to, who people, I'm sure, come to for advice, find solace in your advice. The responsibility of that, is that a heavy load to carry?
No, it's so strange. I mean, and I do think about it all the time, but I just found this connection when I first started doing drag. I was all the drag foremothers that came before me, the people that I looked up to in the drag world, were always involved in social sort of causes, charities, things like that. So it just was a part of the brand of queerness that I grew up with. And so that just became really true to me. And then it's always been a part of it. And I think that it's my responsibility to use my platform in a way that can help other people, enlighten other people. And it definitely, if I see problems with things that are going on in the world, like are happening in this country with racism and with sexism and misogyny and transphobia and homophobia, I'm going to speak out on it, because all of those things, every single one of those things affect me as a woman who's trans in the queer community and a person of color. Like, I got all of them.
You're like, take your pick. Which one today? Which one today? I love it. But Pep, you have had such an incredible career, or being the first trans woman to originate a role on Broadway, head over heels. Hearing that, I remember reading that and thinking like, wow. Tell us about Broadway, and do you plan on returning to Broadway?
Yes, I would love to return to Broadway. Broadway was fantastic. It's a wonderful community of people, of artists, people that are very loving, and I absolutely love it. I had a great time in the show, and it was wonderful to be able to be a part of a show that was also very queer, very is everything okay with the sound?
No,
Okay.
we're good.
um, it was just great to be a part of such a queer show and a great family and a great community. And it was a dream come true, something that I didn't expect. Of course, I did go to college and study musical theater and Broadway performance when I was in college. So I
Yeah.
felt like it was perfect for me. And if I would love to return to Broadway. There's nothing on the table right now. Unfortunately, Broadway is one of the industries that has been extremely hit. And I know that many industries have been hit very hard probably every industry has been hit by COVID-19 and coronavirus and the pandemic. But the Broadway community, I mean, look, you can't have Broadway. The existence of Broadway is the definition of live shows where people are sitting next to each other in a group. And right now, it doesn't look like any of that's going to happen. For the first time in, I think, over 100 years, all of Broadway has been dark for more than 2 months. And it looks like it's probably going to remain that way for at least a couple of months, if not the end of the year. And I've read some reports, and I hope this isn't true, that Broadway is probably going to remain dark, meaning no shows. And I don't just mean Broadway in New York City. I mean live theater shows, period, until sometime next year. And that's billions and billions of dollar industry, employs millions and millions of people. And live theater, and then theater in New York, alone is like, I think $14 billion industry. And so it's really, it's sad to see all those writers, directors, producers, dancers, hairstylists, costume designers, musicians, every single instrument you can think of, conductors, offices that do promotion, and just like all these huge, the medical professionals that treat just Broadway people, the physical trainers. There's such a wide industry of people who work on Broadway and for Broadway, and so there's a lot of people out of work.
Yeah, it's mind blowing how, sorry, my it's live TV people, how the effects of COVID-19 just permeated. It's like this one domino effect after another. You mentioned Broadway being closed for the first time in decades. The Hollywood Bowl has never been closed in 98 years here in Los Angeles, and they canceled their entire 2020 season. And I mean, that's a big deal here. Imagine an industry like Broadway, but you've also delved into television too. God friended me. We saw you in Pose. I mean, everywhere, Pep, everywhere. Television, once we do emerge from this, because we are going to come back. We are going to come back. More television for you?
Oh, absolutely. There's a couple things that were on hold that I don't know when they come back. Hopefully everything bounces back and like just resumes exactly the way it was. I have a feeling we might have some adjustments to make, but hopefully all the plans that we had before will kind of come with it. I am working on a couple of TV projects that are on hold right now. There's another TV project that's in development during this that looks like it'll still continue, but we're like revamping it. So hopefully I'll have some news on that soon. It was a dream. And of course I would love to go back to Pose and rejoin the cast of Pose when they resume with filming season 3. So if anybody thinks that they would like to see me on Pose again, make sure you hashtag or tweet or get at Pose, y'all, and tell them bring back Peppermint, aka Euphoria.
It was so cool to see so many of our trans brothers and sisters on Pose. And the thing is that before, and in conversations about LGBTQ plus characters on TV, back in the day, either they were dying of AIDS, or they were destitute, homeless, or they were or prostitution, right? And
That was
then of course,
it.
right. And Ryan Murphy did a fantastic job of not only drawing to light those aspects, because those were real, but also celebrating and showing how fierce and how amazing ball culture was. And it was the conversations I had with people about Pose when Pose was on, when Pose was in season, where there's like, I never knew all this existed. And then you have people researching Paris is Burning. I'm like, yo, you should have been watched Paris is Burning, for real. Like that's, I liken that to, I don't know, what's one of the greatest documentaries in my life? Truth or Dare from Madonna, right? That's a documentary you need to say, hey, Trace Lissette, how you doing? She says hi below. And Jen.
Oh, now, speaking of ball culture.
I know, right? But we need to see you back on the small screen. We need to see you back on Broadway. We definitely see you on the big screen as well. I want to know, what is a normal day like now for Peppermint? Like, because people, they get up, they shower, they go to their living room, they watch TV. Like, what are you doing to stay busy? And my earpiece just fell out. I knew it was going to happen. What are you doing to stay busy these days?
You're looking at it, honey. Pretty much sit here. Oh my God, I now know what couch potato means. I am working on some new music. I actually have a show coming up that I'm preparing for in June, in exactly a month. And I'm working on a new album that's really personal. I have a big announcement to make about that. And so I've mostly been working on these types of things because obviously I was so excited to get out of once the new year started and things started picking up again before the pandemic. I had a whole calendar. I was getting ready to go back on tour. There was so much that was popping off for me, and it all got put on pause. But a day in the life of me really is getting up whenever I want, watching whatever I want, making some food. These days, I'm making a lot of chicken and vegetables. Last month, I was really featuring French bread pizza, like really featuring it, like maybe too much, but whatever.
Listen, hey, we're in quarantine. No judgment. No food shaming here. Me and my husband, we have chocolate chip cookies every night. So we're here. We are here.
Yes. And so, so just doing that and doing a lot of eating and so much communicating with friends. Of course, I'm here with you now. I talk with my girlfriend, Trace Lissette, all the time, but we have a standing brunch date every single week. And so that's really important to me,
Yeah, what are you binging? You got to be binging something.
I binged everything I want to binge, and I'm about to start. I'm like flirting because I'm very selective with. I can binge, but I can only binge one thing at a time, and I can only really watch like one show at a time. Sorry, planes and things were flying overhead. I'm about to start looking. I finished so many shows. I'm going to start looking and flirting with The Man in the High Castle.
Okay.
Just to see. I don't really know. But the shows that come on regularly that I'm like up to date on, and they only come out once a week. I'm watching Mrs. America on Hulu. I'm watching weekly. I'm watching The Good Fight, which is a great. I love The Good Fight. Did you?
It's
also
so
watch
good.
The Good Wife?
I'm caught up on all seasons of The Good Wife and The Good Fight. Christine, it's too good. It is too good. So good. And the only thing I'm not feeling about this season is what they're doing with Luca's hair, but that's a whole other conversation. But I mean, what is Memo 618? We don't know.
I don't know.
We don't know.
Next episode, we're gonna find out because
we need to.
Because they're gonna have lunch.
Right.
We're gonna have Diane and what's the name? We're gonna have lunch, and we're gonna find out exactly what Memo 618 is, darling.
I know. So they're on the comments are asking if you're watching Hollywood, Ryan Murphy's newest Netflix limited series. I'm watching it. it's God. Ryan Murphy, he just I don't. His brain works like no other when he is creating these series because he doesn't. He's not afraid to push the envelope as far as the content goes. I mean, they touch on everything from prostitution, infidelity.
Oh,
There's
yes, they do.
nudity. But it's still there's so many. He just keeps it so factual, like with Feud or with anything he does. The writers in the writers room, I would love to be a fly on the wall because just the way they bring these stories to life and tell these stories, it's incredible. Are you watching Hollywood?
No, because I finished it a month ago and literally 2 nights when it came out. May 1st, I finished it May 2nd. So I'm not watching Hollywood. But I
I'm
was.
late.
And it was
I'm
delicious.
sorry. I'm sorry I'm late to the party. I don't don't shame me. Please don't slide into my DMs and comment on how lame I am. So okay, great. So okay, cool. All right, cool, good. So me and my husband started watching it. It's great. But yes, The Good Fight, I'm so glad I'm not alone in that.
Oh my God. I don't know. I think you're the only other human that I know. I mean, it's a great show. I have to believe it's everyone's watching it, but I don't really have that many friends that I've talked to that have mentioned it to me. You're the first one. And it's a great show. I'm always
So good.
introducing it to other people. Y'all don't sleep on The Good Fight. Trust and believe it is a very good show. I'm not just
Boom.
crazy.
You're not crazy at all. New, so you have new music, and also I had your BFF Caswell on
Oh, I
last week,
know. I watched
and,
that the other day.
he talked about your podcast. So you guys have renamed it. It's just Pep and Cass. Are we gonna get more of the podcast? And in this podcast, are we gonna get more cooking? Like what's going on?
We are, like we really wanted to figure out, we're taking the time to figure out what we want this podcast to be. And we're getting close. Every day we get closer and closer to it. So yeah, we had our first episode out. That's out now. It's on my YouTube. You can check it out. I don't know if we're gonna like expand to like streaming platforms just yet, but we are finding new things to talk about every single day. And so that we're taping our second episode. It's weekly, but it's a weekly podcast where we talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about, and it might not even be weekly. That's pretty much what it is, because in this quarantine, all bets are off.
Yeah.
So we're just figuring out what we want to do. But what is definitely comes through is our relationship, how much I love him, how much he loves me, and what the things that we are passionate about. And that's those, no matter what we end up doing, that's what it is. The last podcast was an advice podcast. We might implement some of that in this version, or we might just sit around and talk shit. Who knows?
Hey, you know what? Whatever you feel. Do you ever wake up through everything you've done and all your success and the hardships and who you are now? Do you pinch yourself and think like, wow, this is my life? And how do you show gratitude? And you have such a grateful energy, Pep. How do you show gratitude for that?
I don't, I don't really know, but I think it when I do get down, it is important for me. One technique that I do is I stop and try to give gratitude, but I don't really, luckily, I don't really get down that much because I sort of live in this space of knowing that I'm not the only one and that there's someone else out there with a different story. There's someone out there with a greater need than me. There's someone out there who has a higher urgency than me. That's just that's the space that I live in. And so it allows me to room to be grateful all the time, and express gratitude and try to be authentic. I try my best to just, be authentic and connect with different people and express gratitude and thanks and appreciation for other people as often as I can. And I try to have, and I like that to come through in everything that I do, whether I'm doing an interview or talking or doing music or performing on stage. I try to allow that to kind of breeze through me, and hopefully it does.
What are you wanting to attract? Like people want to attract love, they want to attract a child, they want to attract money. Like what is something that you want to call into your life that, and not that something's missing, but we're always evolving. We're constantly on this journey for joy. Because they say happiness is fleeting, but joy is something that could be permanently available, permanently there in your life. What is something that you're wanting to manifest and bring into your life?
If this is my moment to do it, I would say continued joy and self-content. Because I don't want that to go away. And I do feel like I'm living my dream, and I feel very happy with my career. Obviously, I'm sitting at home right now because of the pandemic. So I would like everyone to heal and a cure for or treatment for that so that we can all get back. But past all of that, because I think that's what we all want, past all of that, it would be nice to have a partner again, a partner in, not, I wasn't gonna say a partner in crime, but people say things way too literally, so I don't want to have a criminal partner. It'd be nice to have a man or someone who is in love, and love would be nice. Again, I've had it.
I love it. I love that. Oh, it has been such an honor talking to you today, and thank you for all you've done. I remember when we were talking in the DMs, I was like, "How do you want me to bill you?" Because I think you got to give people their flowers, right? And you want to make sure that people are celebrated. And I think you being an activist and you being just again a beacon of awesomeness, and that's basic, bitch. Beacon of awesomeness. Who says that? But really, we're so grateful for you, Peppermint. So thank you for your time. Thank you for everything you've done. And we are excited for everything that's coming and for everything that's on the horizon for you. The fans are like, Peppermint, thank you. You're so healing. We love you. Oh my God, you need your own talk show. That's next. The Peppermint Talk Show. That's what we're doing next, boo. That's what we're doing.
That's right, boo. That's right. You'll be my first guest.
Boom. Deal. You take care. Order all the French bread pizza you want, and I'll talk to you soon, okay? Thanks for coming on.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.